the biggest thing in my mind that's going to help you develop wisdom, sound character, etc., is going to be humility. If you don't have the humility to say, I don't know, then, like I said before, you're never going to grow. That's the moment your development stops. Whether it's personal finance, community, faith, family, any life zone category. If you're so proud that you think I know everything, then you're not going to grow.
Welcome back to another episode of the Journey to Legacy podcast. My name is Wayne Veldsman. Thank you for being here today. Today, I'm interviewing Mr. Brennan Falks of Path to Great. Brennan actually runs a couple different businesses, but today we're talking about mostly his personal development company, where he's helping people to focus in and develop their social and emotional selves, their faith, their family, their wealth, and their communities as well. And it's pretty amazing. Brennan actually grew up, he doesn't share this in the episode, but Brennan grew up in a very underprivileged, somewhat broken family, not with a big father presence, essentially no father presence at all. But luckily, he started finding personal development. He started getting the inclination towards wanting more in life. And after tons of different mediocre, quote unquote, mediocre jobs and a huge life scare, he really changed his life for forever. So I think you guys are in for a treat today. Thank you for being here. If you like the episode, please subscribe, share it with a friend. But let's hop right on in. Enjoy the show. Brennan, thanks for being here today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I like to give everyone a chance in the beginning. Introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, so my name is Brennan. As you mentioned, I'm a personal development coach. I have a personal development company, and I have a long journey that has led me into kind of being a fanatic and what a lot would call an extremist, which I'm okay with this title. Calling me an extremist because I really go in completely whenever I'm faced with something that convicts me and that challenges what I currently think and believe. And so I'm building a system. I'm building this company, this personal development company, to help people go through that journey in a concise way that makes sense, that I've put to practice and that has worked for me. I understand how people come from various backgrounds, and maybe everything's not going to click in the exact same way that it did for me, but my goal is to approach things with facts and practicality. And so, whatever it is that you're facing, I think that there's a really strong foundational baseline that if you take care of that and you build that, the rest of life, it doesn't necessarily get easier, obviously, but you're able to work out a lot of those other challenges when you build that strong foundation in areas like your social emotional wellness, your physical health, your spiritual health, your relationships, like if you're married, if you're a parent, all those types of things culminate into helping you grow and develop in other areas of life.
Nice. I love this piece that you said, right? The facts and practicality is what you're focused on, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people believe that coaching, especially when you get to like spirituality and faith, right? It's this sort of big, untouchable, intangible thing. How did you sort of figure out that, facts and practicality is the way to go, especially since, you're pretty faith-based?
Yeah, so very faith-based. And one thing that has happened over the years, so I've led Bible studies, and we have founded our own home fellowship, and we've gone from being in the church and listening to sermons and pastors and things like that to listening to sermons online, and then at some point I sat back and I'm analyzing everything, and I'm saying, I'm hearing some things and I'm reading other things. And so if I'm claiming that the basis of my faith is the scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, and when I say that, I'm referring to the books from Genesis to Malachi in the Bible. If I'm going to say that that's my faith, then I'm going to have to live according to that, right? But I'm hearing a lot of conflicting things. And so we just took that into reading and studying for ourselves chapter by chapter throughout the scriptures. And what I came to realize is that, yes, faith, belief, etc., is a requirement. because at the end of the day, there's no visible physical proof to a god or godhead or whatever. But at the same time, all of these things in faith that help you to become a better person, a person who is focused and who is being the best for yourself and everyone around you, requires that you adhere to the facts of life and the nature of life. And so one of my philosophies is that if you're any type of believer in a creator, you would also have to then admit that this creator has things that you don't know, like your design, and he knows exactly what you need for your design to flourish. And so that comes down to things like resting, 1 day a week. And people look at that and they think, no, we need to go, 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 go. Whereas what I've come to realize is when you adhere to these basic commandments and these basic philosophies that are founded throughout the scriptures, your body can really then become more in line with the nature that it was created to be. And so that's where I rely on the facts of, like, for example, I don't know how familiar you are with biblical practice, but in the Torah, in the book of Leviticus, it outlines what to eat and not what to eat regarding animals. And so some animals are deemed clean, others are deemed unclean. And so science has confirmed a lot of these things. For example, like eating pig is very detrimental to human health. That doesn't mean that pigs are bad or unnecessary or, anything like that. But the fact is that when you consume certain animal meats, you overload your body with toxins, parasites, etc., that can't be cooked away. All these different factors play into that.
Sure. Interesting. Interesting. So, when you were talking about that, if you believe in a higher power, whatever it might be, right, then you automatically are believing that there are things that you don't understand, right? Your creation, where we came from, is a great one, right? It's hard for us to understand. But overarching, we do understand that there are things in place that are meant for our growth, for our health, to better us. And that's sort of where you focus in, right? Is that we understand there's things that we don't understand, but the things that we do, the basis that was given to us, let's focus in on that. And that's how you improve the things that your company sort of focuses on: the social and emotional health, your faith, your family, your wealth, and your community. Am I sort of following you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it becomes, if you're going to remain humble so that you can continue to grow, because the moment that you start to experience pride and you think that you have something all figured out and this is the end all be all, is the moment you're going to stop growing. So if you can remain humble and you can approach something and say, okay, I don't fully know the extent of XYZ, but I do know these basic principles that can be applied to my life and how those can impact my life. And so if you start at the very beginning and you pick a worldview, because from where I stand, there's generally two worldviews. There's the evolutionary worldview and there's the creation worldview in large. I mean, I'm sure there's multiple other worldviews, but those are kind of the dominating two, right? And so you pick one of those and then you move forward from there. And so for me, I've chosen to pick and at the end of the day, I would submit that both of them are belief systems. So I've picked this one belief system that says that there is a creator, there is design. And then I move on from there and I say, okay, if I'm going to adhere to that philosophy, that belief, then I'm going to live it fully. And I'm going to add in things to my life from various cultures, from various facts, from scientific evidence, things that are hard, factual evidence that I can repeat and examine and thoroughly study for myself. Then I can apply those things to my life, and my life becomes richer in every sense of the word, whether it's, like I said, parenting. I'm very big on parenting your children after you've parented yourself. And so I'm a huge proponent of thinking that majority of us, we were raised in, especially our generation. You look like you're a similar age to me. In our generation, we were raised a very specific way that is very systematic and a generational type of thing that has never been really questioned or diverted from. And so for me, I'm looking at it like, well, how can I teach and raise children to be emotionally stable, self-disciplined, just good human beings if I don't first look back into me, find those flaws within me, and teach myself and fix those things within me first. And so when it comes to something like social and emotional wellness, you can't teach your children how to control those huge emotions and those impulses that they feel and that they frankly don't have the brain capacity yet to curb, right? You have to learn to curb those things yourself, which is a challenge. And then once you can do that, then you can start to teach, because you cannot teach anything that you don't know. And to know is to fully understand and implement.
Absolutely. Brennan, man, that's so wise, right? I love how you said that, teach others or parent others after you've parented yourself,
Yeah.
right? Unfortunately, a lot of society doesn't think that way. A lot of society does think, I know everything, right? A lot of times, an adult figure, maybe somebody who's wiser than you, starts to say something, especially to a kid, and they say, I know, before they've even completed their sentence,
Mhm.
right? How could you help our listeners to adopt that of mindset of I don't know, and that's okay. So let me go, now that I realize I don't know, let me go learn so that I can teach others.
Yeah, that's the piece. So I'll bring it back to what I said. The biggest thing in my mind that's going to help you develop wisdom, sound character, etc., is going to be humility. If you don't have the humility to say, I don't know,
Mm.
then like I said before, you're never going to grow. That's the moment your development stops. Whether it's personal finance, community, faith, family, any life zone category, if you're so proud that you think I know everything, then you're not going to grow. But the other piece to what you said, I love that you finished the I don't know phrase that you started, because what happens a lot of times is someone will say, I don't know, and stop at that. And so I think a better humble admittance is, I don't know, but I'll find out. And so it's that drives you, right? If you say, I'm not sure on this thing, I'm not sure, let's say, how to raise my children because I was raised this certain way. I can see the flaws with how I was raised. And you can't be so naive and so biased to say everything was perfect the way that it was done for me, or the way that I've seen, or the way that I'm doing it. You have to say, how can I how can I make this better? How can I make this greater? Once you do that and you humbly say, well, I don't know, but I can find out, then you go and you start that quest of learning. And if you're humble and open, you're learning from so many different avenues. And so, like, for example, me as a person of faith, my fallback is the entire belief system and everything that is described and pictured in the scriptures. That's my fallback. That's my default. However, coming from a place of wisdom, if you have read the book of Proverbs, you hear an entire matter on a subject before you make any decisions, before you come to
Mm.
any conclusions. And so I'm not afraid to listen to somebody with a completely different worldview, a completely different spiritual view, or anything like that. I'm going to absorb everything that I'm hearing. I'm going to weigh it with my worldview and my belief system. And I'm going to use the pieces that make sense, again, from a factual and practical situation based on that.
Nice. Being willing to hear people, being willing to learn fully about a subject before making up your mind, right? Before criticizing it, whatever it might be. So, Brennan, looking at you, looking at a lot of the guests on the show, mostly are successful entrepreneurs, right? Success is, varying on however everybody likes to define it. You run multiple businesses. You've got your head clearly on straight. You're humble. You're faith based, right? You're growth oriented. Were you always like this? Take us back. Let's start chopping up a little bit of your journey to how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so I can't say I've always had these ideas in my mind, but I haven't always put them to practice. And so going all the way back to being a child, I've had various family members who have their own construction company or something like that. And that's, I've kind of followed that pattern. And I've always been fascinated with with success in, as being an entrepreneur, I've always been fascinated with how to find the American dream, so to speak. But I've tried to balance that and couple that with the things that I missed out on. And so I've seen a lot of people in my own life being so focused on that alone that little old me, little boy Brennan, gets missed and overlooked. And now that I have children of my own, I'm like, well, I refuse to do that because I know how that feels. And I don't want them to experience that from me. They're going to experience it from others in life. That's just reality. But I'm supposed to be the foundation and the rock for their growth and their development in adolescence. And so I've I've tried to put in systems in place to regulate, not being so concerned with chasing the idea of success, but still working diligently. I work 6 days a week. I have a very packed schedule. I'm busy constantly, and I'm doing a lot of new things, constantly trying to develop my businesses. And so a lot of things changed for me once I started to acknowledge within myself the things that I believed and the things that I wanted, but realized that I wasn't practicing or doing. And so I'm looking at myself like I'm a hypocrite. I'm a fool to others because I open my mouth and I speak, but then my life does not reflect what I'm speaking. And so this must change. So that's when it really, probably about a decade, maybe 12 years ago, that's when things really started to change a lot, was when I looked at myself in the mirror and said, I believe XYZ about success, about what family's supposed to look like, about my faith. I say that I'm a believer in all of these things. I say that these are my life philosophies, yet my life itself is not reflecting these. And I think that's a big problem in society, is that a lot of people, it seems like everybody's a coach, or you go on social media and everybody is an expert in something. And when I look at these types of things, I'm thinking, for example, a health expert. I have a personal training certificate. I've let it lapse, but personal training, nutrition, I'm huge. I'm very strict, like I said, somewhat of an extremist. And I'll look at other people who are giving health advice, and I'm not trying to be judgy, but I'm looking at them like, your health is suffering. And so I understand that you're on a journey, you're rebuilding your health, and you're fired up, you're excited about it, and you want to share with other people what you've learned. However, you have to, I'm not going to say you have to perfect it, because you're always going to continue growing, but you really have to implement these things to a point that you're no longer fixing yourself before you can start helping others. It's the idea of putting on your own oxygen mask first.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The practice what you preach. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear that you realize this within yourself, right? That you were saying, I want to be successful, right? That you understand all these concepts, but you weren't really living it, right? You almost, it sounds like you kind of felt like a little bit of a phony,
Yes,
if I'm hearing you right. Okay.
absolutely.
How did this shift happen? You said it was maybe about 10 to 12 years ago. What made you realize, okay, let me actually put my money where my mouth is? Let me be what I've been talking about. Where did that shift happen?
One of the biggest shifts was, I got sick. I had gallstones, and that was a really terrible experience. And that's when I started to just kind of step back and reanalyze everything, because I'm thinking, well, I exercise constantly. I think I eat fairly well, but I still have this problem. And so I can either continue and say, no, I'm healthy, there's just something wrong, or I can say, maybe I'm not so healthy. What can I do differently to re-engage my health and get back to a point of normality? And so throughout that journey of being sick, my faith developed tremendously, because it was at that moment that I was essentially desperate. And I'm realizing I'm not living in accordance with what I say I believe. So that changes today. So I started studying more of my faith. I started studying the scriptures more. And I found a natural health practitioner who helped me rid myself of those gallstones, just various cleanses and all different types of nutritional changes. And I still have my gallbladder, which anyone that I've spoken to, not anyone, but most anyone who I've spoken to after who has had an issue with their gallbladder has had to rush into the emergency room, and the immediate solution that doctors in emergency rooms present is to remove the
Remove
gallbladder.
it.
And for me, that wasn't really an option. So I'm dealing with all of this pain from the gallbladder. Like, I can't stand up straight. My side and my back is hurting so bad. And I'm like, what's going on? I start seeking medical attention, and I get this diagnosis that you have a gallbladder infection. It's likely gallstones. The solution is to remove your gallbladder. And I'm like, no, I can't.
Mhm.
My belief is convicting me to think that everything that's in my body is necessary. And so I don't want to take something out and deal with consequences of that later. I'm going to seek some alternative measures. And if at the end of the day I just can't figure out anything, then, if my gallbladder is going to kill me, then obviously maybe I'm going to have
Sure.
to do
Last
that.
resort. Yeah.
Right, right. So I started seeking that solution, and like I said, I was able to heal that problem. And so it's things like that that wake you up and cause you to start looking and asking more questions, and again, just developing, right?
Yeah.
If you're just listening to anything that anyone says and you're taking their word for it and you're not investigating something, there's a chance it could be true, there's a chance
Mm.
it could not. And so in my case, had I listened to the common practice and just removed my gallbladder, multiple people who I've spoken to afterward have permanent issues with
Oh,
because of
wow.
the fact that they don't have a gallbladder, right? And so there's always more answers than one. There's
Sure.
always more answers than one. There's no one single way to do everything. But when we're desperate, when our emotions are involved and we don't know how to regulate those emotions, that's when we make poor decisions like, okay, I'm going to die if I don't figure this out. I must get my gallbladder out of my body before it kills me. Well, no, you could
Yeah.
actually just cleanse the inside of your body and pass those stones that are blocking your gallbladder from functioning. And then you can start to rebuild your gut health and things like that.
Yeah. So, there's so much stuff that you mentioned here, which is interesting, right? That first off, it was an intense illness that caused you to change your way of thinking. I can't even tell you the amount of people that I interview that this is so similar in their lives, right? And so let me keep going here before I ask another question in that. Right, it was an intense moment that happened there. Right after that, you mentioned that because of this, it caused you to change your thinking. Right, and yet now also you realize that there's always multiple paths to take, multiple options to go, depending on who you listen to, what your thoughts, what your perspective is. A key lesson that you decided to share with me before the interview is that your perceptions create your thoughts, and your thoughts create your emotions, and your emotions are sort of a guiding system that are sending you a message, right?
Yes,
It seems like these two things relate a little bit of what we're talking about right now. Tell us
absolutely.
a little bit more about this key lesson.
Yeah, so that that's something that I've learned since having kids, because anyone who has kids can probably relate to this. Your Even if you have a long fuse and you don't just get angry quickly or something like that, which is my case. I'm patient with the way that I react to things. However, when having kids, those patients really do get tested a lot, because you're dealing with human beings who you're trying to communicate with and teach, but their physical brain development is not on the same playing field as yours. And so there's
Yep.
things that, like, for example, you could tell a child, you may not hitting hurts, and they can repeat that to you, and seconds later they'll go hit their sibling,
Mm.
because those types of things don't register so easily to an undeveloped brain. The frontal cortex of your brain is not developed until age 25 or somewhere around there. So that's the main
Mm.
thinking region of your brain. So that key lesson is really big, because however I perceive something is what creates the thoughts that are generating in my mind. And as those thoughts are being generated, my emotions are starting to grow. and they're starting to become more understandable to me, right? I'm starting, let's say I see two people on the sidewalk, and it looks like they're having a confrontation. And so I'm perceiving it as a confrontation. And then I'm starting to think of all the different scenarios that could be involved. And then because of that perception and because of those thoughts, I'm starting to feel a certain type of feeling. Maybe I'm feeling anxiety, maybe I'm feeling frustration, something like that. But the truth is, I don't know what's happening in that situation until I gather more facts. All I'm going off of
Mhm.
is my perception of the situation. They could be best friends, and this could be, they could be from a completely different culture or something that I don't understand. But what happens is we perceive something, we run through these multiple thoughts in seconds, fractions of time, and then our emotions develop, and then we react to the emotions. And the key lesson that I've learned is all that process is a very natural process, and your emotions guide you. There's a in the personal development group, especially the success group, for example, there's somewhat of a disdain for emotions in general. And I used to be of this thought. I used to think that emotions are invaluable, just block them off, ignore them completely. They slow you down, they derail you, they soften you, etc.
Mm.
I've come to realize that your emotions are a guiding system, right? A GPS guides you where to go. Your emotions help in that process because, as an example, if you see a snake, venomous snake, let's say you know about snakes somewhat, you're not a snake expert, but you know, oh, that's a venomous snake. Whether it's a big feeling or a small feeling, you feel a feeling of fear or worry. That feeling is a guiding system that's saying, hey, you have a decision to make. Let's say you're seeing something and you're starting to become angry, you're feeling angry. That anger is a system to tell you, calm down and change, right? So my belief
Change.
is that
Mm.
every single emotion has a message. One of the best ones that I can elaborate on is the feeling of frustration. The feeling of frustration has the message that is telling you, calm down and be willing to see or do things differently.
Nice.
So if you can understand those messages behind the feelings that you're having, then that's when you can start to regulate the emotion and move back to a place of moving forward with logic and reason. But if you're caught up in that emotion, you don't know the message it's trying to tell you, and you have no idea how to regulate it, or you're stuck in that
Well,
emotion and you're making decisions from that premise.
well, I like it, but I think everyone needs to go back here 2 minutes, listen to this again. I mean, it's so important that we understand one that based off our perceptions, which might be right, might be wrong, that's then what dictates our thoughts and then our emotions. And our emotions are truly this guiding system, right? I love that you used frustration there as an example. As we're sort of slowly starting to wind down the episode, I'm curious of your transition from, you said you had tons of full-time jobs from working in banks and airports, stuff like that, to running your own companies. A lot of our listeners, I think, want to make that transition. Tell us just pretty quickly, how did that transition go for you? How did you make the shift?
Well, I've always been one to put a lot of effort into whatever I'm doing, and so I've been able to succeed within jobs fairly quickly. I've been able to promote quickly and things like that, and but I've realized at the same time I don't have a college degree. I don't have anything that's going to get me into a high corporate position other than my drive, my effort, my initiative, things like that. But at the end of the day, certain places just aren't interested in those
Yeah,
things. They're interested in, where did you go to school? What's your degree, etc. And I'm not saying that that's not a limiting thing. If you want to go that route,
sure.
you can certainly make it happen. But for me, I'm realizing, okay, I want more freedom. I want to do what I want to do. And I think that anyone who is living today needs to find something that they're deeply, innately passionate about. Because it's my belief that that is your purpose to society, to the world, to this time that you're living in. If you can find that thing that you're deeply, innately passionate about, and you can somehow make that into something that can become a business and provide a living for you, not only are you going to love what you're doing, but you're going to provide something that is unique to you that benefits everyone around you. And so that was kind of my transition. Was I have this deep passion that I'm not able to really express within these positions that I have. I don't have the autonomy that I want. And so how can I make that a reality? And it started for me like it probably does with most, where you start things on the side and you start to grow and develop those. And then eventually, with time, with effort, with energy, they start to replace that thing that is currently sustaining you.
You realize within yourself that you're super hardworking, super dedicated. You weren't passionate about what you were doing, and you
Right.
understood the purpose of passion, the importance of it. And so you slowly on the side started doing something you were more passionate about. And I really like that you shared that message, because too many people, including myself for a long time, thought that you have to just 100% clean break, jump into entrepreneurship. But building on the side is a great place to start, usually the
Right.
path for most people. And so, Brendan, I would hate myself if I didn't give you a chance to actually talk about Path to Great, what you're working on now. And it sounds like what's going to be the legacy for you here in this world as well.
Yeah, that's my hope for sure. So Path to Great started several years ago, and it started mainly with financial coaching. A big piece of my journey was meeting my wife, and one of the first things that we established together was we don't want money and finance to be a point of contention between us. Whether we're struggling or not, we don't want it to be a point of contention where we're at each other's throats, because we've seen it tear apart families, including my own. And so that was one of the first things that we learned and that we put to practice. And it started with that. And as I've been a fanatic exerciser, I've been a fanatic, personal finance person now. I've been a fanatic in all these different things. And so as those things develop, and like I was saying earlier, as I become more of the example and less of the in fixing mode person, then the more I can start to coach and teach on those things. The more I know them, fully understand them, fully implement them, then that's when I can start to teach those and help others along that same journey.
Nice. Path of Greats, it's amazing, man. It's super similar to Journey to Legacy in my mind,
Yeah.
honestly, right? Seems like, at least for me, it started with personal development, with me growing to a place where I can help others. That's the same with Path to Great. And Brennan, there's no doubt in my mind that you're helping a lot of people as you're, helping yourself and then passing on the message. Thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's anyone who's going to do it, as you probably know yourself, it's a huge it's a journey. And so the name Path to Great kind of encompasses that. Like it's literally a never-ending journey. You're on this path for the rest of your life. And like I said earlier, the moment you step off the path or you think I've got it all is the moment you are no longer on the path toward greatness. You're on the path toward mediocre for you. And mediocre for you could be at a different level than someone else. But the truth is, if you stop developing and stop growing, that's mediocre you. And there's a better you that's waiting to be discovered.
And that's a wrap, everybody. Man, I love it when my guests have just this amazing last quote. Do yourself a favor, go rewind back 30 seconds, a minute, something like that. Listen to that final statement there of Brennan's about how you're on a never-ending journey. And the moment where you think that you have it all figured out and you step off this path, that's the moment when you're going to sort of lose it. But how awesome was that episode, right? He talked about how humility really is the key to growth and success, right? Knowing that you don't know it all, but being willing to go figure it out, to go learn about it. Man, he talks about facts and practicality being the actual way to better your life as well. And also, how cool he says, right, to understand your perceptions and your thoughts and then your emotions. And he used frustration as a cool example there as well. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. As Brennan mentioned, right, this is a never-ending journey that we're all on in personal development. And with that, we all need help and support to keep bettering ourselves and to actually help and support others. I'd like to invite you to come join the Journey to Legacy community, where we are doing exactly that. A community focused on personal and professional development for ourselves and for others. And that's the legacy that we're working to leave on this world. Come check us out over at journey2legacy.org. Until next time, everybody, my name is Wayne Veldsman, and you've been listening to the Journey to Legacy podcast.